Okay, Ben, hey, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being our first guest outside of the US. We're excited to have you and learn from you. I want to start off just getting into your background just a little bit here. What drew you into the recruiting space and the executive placement space?
That's a great question. Around 25 years ago, I was graduating. I did a business degree with a specialization in human resources and a minor in also French and German languages. And to be honest with you, I saw a commercial in the local paper advertising for trainee recruitment consultants. And I thought HR, recruiting, it's connected. My languages, it's a European role. And I had a great opportunity with a Californian organization in headhunting looking to set up a European office, and the mission was to help US tech firms set up in Europe with their senior commercial hiring. So I thought it's perfect, and it really drew me to it. It was a really fantastic American organization, floated on the Nasdaq, and I thought, wait, yeah, wow, brilliant, that ticks all the boxes.
Yeah. That is so interesting. I love hearing how it's always unexpected, but it seems to just line up everybody's careers. But that is perfect, right? It kind of seems like it fell in your lap there. I'm sure there's a lot of work that's been going into that, and you obviously have a great successful career under your belt. And so I want to ask you so that the audience knows who's your typical candidate and who's your typical client, so they have a good idea of what you're looking to place.
So a typical candidate will be a senior commercial executive working for a B2B enterprise SaaS or technology company. They could be C-level CEOs, they could be chief marketing officer, chief customer success. We also look at the VP level directors, and we start at the individual contributor level. So the individuals who look at closing big complex deals. And in terms of our typical client, they are B2B SaaS firms, technology companies who have some type of complex B2B solution they're looking to scale, startup scale ups. They can be private equity or VC backed as well.
hmm Okay. And diving into that a little bit more, what trends are you seeing for candidates right now that are looking for those senior SaaS roles or looking for those types of positions that you'd place in?
So I think what's happened a few years ago, the market boomed after COVID. It was easier to find a job, or a lot easier. I think there's been a lot of layoffs, a lot of individuals now who are getting bombarded from recruiters offering them work. The market switched. It's become very employer focused. There's been a shortage of senior commercial jobs out there. And as a result, many individuals are spending a lot of time on LinkedIn and on looking for jobs, applying, not getting very well, getting frustrated, struggling, scratching their head thinking what's going on. So I think there's been a switch in the market. And also there's been another shift back to the office as well, away from working from home. So it's a lot harder now to get a job in Europe, and I think in the US as well, versus a few years ago. That's one of the biggest things going on, and the frustration that comes with it.
Mhm. Do you think it's the hiring expectations of the companies or of the employers or what, on your personal opinion, what are you seeing that is causing that shift?
I think it's often it's the large amount of applicants per job applying. For example, if you have a chief revenue officer role, you'll get hundreds and hundreds of people applying and calling up. So I think it's the choices resulting into some employers becoming a lot pickier about the criteria they're looking for. So, for example, if you've got a very jumpy resume, meaning that you move jobs every 6 to 18 months, if you've got a track record of just jump, 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 it's becoming very, very difficult for those individuals to find work. And companies are being pickier. They want people stable, strong, experts in what they do, experienced, and yes, it's becoming tougher if you don't tick those boxes.
hmm And are you seeing any other, I guess, expectations that have changed in the last 2 years since COVID? Of because I know I've seen a shift. It almost went from you stayed at your company a long time, a while ago, right? You stayed at your company for your entire career, and then it kind of shifted. Hey, I'm going to jump every couple of years, and it seems like that's kind of backfiring on some people now. What other expectations are you seeing, if any, from a company that would be good for a candidate to know, off the top of your head?
I think to be flexible in terms of location. So I did touch upon earlier where the movement back to being in an office. I spoke to someone in Amazon a few days ago who was saying, look, we've got to be in the office 5 days a week. So I think it's the ability to want to go to the office or be near an office versus 5 days a week working from home. There are a lot of people who still feel they want to work from home. They got used to a different lifestyle. But if you are more flexible, and of course, if you are able to work from an office, there's a much bigger choice of jobs available versus pure remote.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree, right? I know we
Yeah,
have a little bit of overlap in what we do with resumes and helping clients in that area. And when every candidate that I'm speaking to, majority of them want to stay where they're at, right? They don't want to move. And it's so different than it was probably 15 years ago, where people just knew, right? I mean, you grew up, your parents moved for work, or I expected to always move. And then when COVID hit, everybody, just said, this is pretty nice. Right? I don't have to
yeah.
move. I get to pick where I live, higher salary, lower pay for rent or for the mortgage as well. So that is really good information for our listeners to hear. So I appreciate that, especially because it's good for people to know. There's definitely an increase in the need for people to be going back to office and relocate for that position, and there's less competition because everybody wants remote roles. So those that are listening that are actively looking and need to make a change, be open to making maybe relocating. um, I appreciate that. And what advice would you give? Because this is diving just, I'm trying to just get even deeper because we're getting these questions all the time. And I'm wondering what advice you'd give to an executive looking to make a change in their career given the job market today. Besides, so we've hit on right location, right? Maybe be open to moving locations. What advice would you give them? Maybe with the interview or setting up to see opportunities. What would you give them?
I think the first thing to do if you're going to launch a job search is to make sure your resume is really, really sharp first. Then just
Mhm.
get your marketing tools lined up. So your resume or LinkedIn profile before you do anything, because hiring managers, investors, the people are going to hire you, the first thing they're going to do is jump on your LinkedIn and your resume. So I think it's really important to make sure that you come across and look fantastic and really pop on those marketing tools straight away. So that's the absolute first thing to do. And the next thing after is to make sure you can sell yourself and tell your story exceptionally well. So that would include when you're first being interviewed, have your 30 or 60-second opening elevator pitch nailed to make it to sell yourself and explain what you want to do clearly. And also make sure you're well practiced in talking through your career experience, and make sure it sells. And finally, talk about the problems you can solve. So no one's really interested just to hear about what your job was or just to read out your job description. Companies hire you for a reason. They want to know the value you bring, the problems you can solve them. Why would they pay you $30,000, $40,000 a month to do what, to solve what problems? So work out your value and use those value statements and explain the outcomes you can provide those possible employers to really help you get more offers. Does that make sense, Jesse?
Yes, it does. And there's so many things going on in my head right now because it's so relevant. What I'm seeing, and I'm sure you're seeing this too, a lot of people I know when they talk to recruiters or hiring managers or those whoever's in charge of bringing them on, right? They're having some issues. I'm seeing a lot of executives having issues explain what they do and the benefit that they can bring without saying, I need an hour, right? And they just go over the last 20 years, everything that they've done, and it's throw up on a page or throw up just kind of vomit everywhere, right? And not to say it's a bad thing. Everybody deals with that. I do it all the time, just trying to explain my day to my wife, right? And she's like, I don't need all the
Yeah.
details. Just give me the summary, right? And the most important things. So what how would you suggest somebody goes about doing that, knowing the value points that they bring? Because I know our listeners have worked with us on the branding, right? And what we usually say is, hey, use those points that we bring out in the resume, use that as we dive into that with you. But what other things would you say besides the resume to make sure they see the value that they bring? Would you suggest asking the employer and the recruiter they're speaking with what are the exact points that the company's looking for before they even give what they can do? Or I'll stop talking, but what would you suggest?
Yeah, I think you need to brainstorm firstly what are the problems you solve relevant to a job you're applying for. You can do a huge amount of research online now using AI like ChatGPT to identify if you're going for a job interview, what are the top challenges this company X is currently going through. These are the types of problems I solve. Can you give me some examples how I can add value to that business? So what it means when you have that interview, you're already going in knowing what their problems are, their current problems, and how you can solve them. So you almost create a mini business plan in your mind to take to that interview, which will hopefully make you stand out from the herd, and you'll just look so much sharper.
Mhm. It's almost just like all the business books that are out there. You know, I know a lot of people that are actively looking say they want to do a broad approach. They want to apply to every single position, 500 positions a week, right? And just do kind of a spread. I'm going to apply to everything and make sure I don't miss anything. When in all reality, it's almost like having a business, right? I'm sure you've seen this, right? If your business starts decreasing in sales or starts
Yeah.
decreasing in revenue, you don't want to branch out and think about every other possible option you could do. You want to focus on your niche. You want to focus on what you can do and build that. And it seems like that's a real key here. We've had a lot of guests on saying that's a very similar thing, not the same thing. I like the way you're wording it of, hey, make sure you know 30 to 60 seconds, understand your pitch, understand the value you bring, do your research, right? Is there anything else you want to add to that? Because I think this is an amazing topic.
I think when you just touched upon the sort of spray and pray, as we call it, approach, just
Mhm.
blasting out your resume to LinkedIn adverts predominantly, that has a very small percentage chance. It can work, but I think you need to have a complete mixed channel approach. So work your network. I surveyed, I think it's over 300 B2B tech individuals earlier this year, and three-quarters found their last job not even through an advert. So there's a big market there, and that's using your network, going through referrals. Do a bit of, if you see an advert, don't just press quick apply all the time. Try and contact someone you know there or get a referral in. Be different to what everyone else is doing. So it's just having that broad brush of mixture of different channels you're going through. But the close connections getting referred in, I think, has the most impactful way of getting interviews.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. And would you correct me if you're seeing something differently? But what I'm seeing is we're connected with so many different people on LinkedIn, second connections, third connections. So I think what a lot of people their instant barrier is I don't know that many people, right? I'm looking in a different industry or I'm looking somewhere else. And usually what I'm seeing is somebody you know is connected to somebody. So just
Yeah.
have the conversations. Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, they're going through, they're seeing who they're connected to, or if they look at a certain company and they see what connections they have in common, and they're using that as best they can to get to the hiring manager. But I think it's really important as well that you aim high in the organization. So if it's a company, for example, of 500 individuals, and you're going and you're a senior person, try to avoid the talent acquisition team. They're fantastic at what they do, but they're overworked. They can't deal with thousands of people. They've got enough. So go to the
Mhm.
C level, go to the VP level. It's top-down selling recruitment, always has been. Go to the
Yeah.
top types of businesses, and rather than going in at a low level, and then you get pushed down. Much easier to get pushed down versus to try and get pushed up.
Mhm. I hope everybody's taking notes when they listen to this. I hope they're getting this. Thank you so much, Ben. Um, I want to I want to make sure that the listeners have an idea here. Let's say they're listening and they're saying, you know, I am the perfect candidate or I'm the perfect client for Ben. What's the best way for them to find you and reach out to you and learn more from what you do?
Yeah, I mean, on LinkedIn, Ben Watkins, Intrinsic Executive Search. That's probably the best way to get hold of me. Drop me a message or send me a connection request.
Mhm. Perfect. Perfect. We're going to include that link below and make sure that everybody can find their way to you in case they have, you know, questions or want to be a client, whatever it is for you. Ben, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for all your answers, all the advice. Again, I hope people took a second to listen, but thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.